I'm Katie Kelly, and I have the great honor and privilege of introducing two fabulous authors. One is Michael Hearst. He does it all. He's not just an author, he's a composer, an instrumentalist, a writer. His book, Unusual Creatures, was released with a companion album and was used in the PBS digital series. His other books, Extraordinary People and Curious Construction. But the project that really fascinates me is that you took recipes by the greats, including Mario Batali and David Chang, and set them to music. Well, he set them to music, word for word recipes. And if you can turn a recipe into a song, maybe I'll wait it out. I'm hoping you'll have time to sing us a small bit of a recipe. The second author we have is Susan Stockdale. She had the perfect childhood for doing the work she does today. Growing up, her books reflect the colors and nature of her childhood home in Coral Gables, Florida, and in Ireland, where her dad was the U.S. ambassador for a time. As an adult, she's worked as a textile designer. Lord & Taylor's bought your stuff, so if you all were shopping there at the right time, you may have one in your very own closet. She's done note cards, and she's also worked in special events. Her children's childhood led to her career as a picture book author and illustrator. Weekly trips to the library for books gave her the urge to write a picture book. And then on a trip to the zoo, she and her children spotted a flamenco standing on one leg, taking a nap. And that became her first book, Some Sleep Standing Up. Susan has written 8 books, including Fantastic Flowers, Spectacular Spots, and Stripes of All Types. I know you'll enjoy her words and her fabulous graphic pictures. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Katie Kelly. It's so nice. Thank you all for being in my tent today. Let's see. Move it up a little bit. Excellent. Okay, so I have my fancy clicker here, and as she mentioned, I've done a lot of books about nature. I think nature is the most amazing. It's the muse for all of the books that I write. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is one book that just came out 2 months ago called Fantastic Flowers. I got the idea for the book when I went to the U.S. Botanic Garden, which is right in Washington, D.C., and it's free, and it's incredible. And I walked in with my husband, and I saw this monkey orchid. And I found that absolutely incredible that this looks exactly like a monkey, hence the name monkey orchid. And I thought, you know what? The idea came to me in a flash. I'm going to do a book about flowers that look like other things. So I'm going to read the book to you now and tell you a little bit about how I researched it and wrote it and illustrated it. Fantastic Flowers. This is the bumblebee orchid on the cover because it looks like a laughing bumblebee. Flowers in shapes that surprise and delight. That is called the lips flower. Looks like lips. Upside down pants. A parrot in flight. So on the left, you have what's called the Dutchman's breeches. Breeches, of course, being another name for pants. And on the right, I cannot believe it, but this flower really does look like this. It's called the parrot flower. It's very rare. It's in Thailand. Prim ballerinas, wild baboons. On the left, that's a ballerina orchid. And on the right, it's the monkey orchid that I showed you earlier. Snakes standing guard. So to me, these friar cowls look to me like snakes that are standing up at full attention. And spiraling spoons. I absolutely love this flower. This was really beautiful to paint. It's the African daisy, and it really does look like it's got spoons all around its periphery. Heralding trumpets. So I like that. That's the trumpet creeper. Do, like it's like heralding, you know. A Mexican hat. That really is the common name for that. It's also called the prairie cone flower because it looks like it's got a cone on top. Skittering spiders, that's the red spider flower. A fluttering bat. Now, when I did my research, I could not believe this. This is called the black bat flower. It's self-pollinating. It's really so unusual because you don't usually see flowers that have that dusky black color or that look like a bat. Ice cream desserts. That's the ice cream tulip. Babes taking naps. That's called the swaddled baby orchid. Really look like little alien babies with their arms up. Bumblebees laughing. I had to make that what's called a double spread going across 2 pages. And purses with flaps. That's called the pocketbook flower because it kind of looks like a little purse. Pineapple posing. That's the pineapple lily. Bunches of grapes. We've seen those everywhere. Grape hyacinths. They really do look like grapes. Fantastic flowers in all kinds of shapes. So I've done a number of books. I always end with kids on the last page interacting with the theme of my book or animals or whatever it is in some way. So I had fun with that picture. So when I first get my idea, when I went to the botanic garden, I came home and I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to do a book about flowers that look like other things. So I just write down all sorts of little random notes. I'm already thinking about the title of the book. But down below I have flowers and shapes that blank and delight, blank, 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 flight, okay? I'm just beginning my rhyme scheme, but I already have an anchor for my words. So when I create my books, I think of the rhythm a lot. And then at the bottom I say, call you director of U.S. Botanic Garden, which I did. I do my research in really traditional ways. I look at books about plants and flowers. I look at fantastic websites like the Natural History Museum website or the U.S. Botanic Garden. I go to botanic gardens whenever I can and look at the flowers because I can't go to Thailand to see my, parrot flower. And on the right is the guy that was really my chief consultant. That's the executive director of the U.S. Botanic Garden. So I called him when I had the idea, and he was thrilled to help me because he said, you know what? I don't think there are that many books that are fun. Hopefully this is fun for kids about flowers. So he was my chief consultant, but I work with 2 other botanists on the book. On the left, you see my early draft, and on the right is my final draft. So on the left, for example, I had, bright ballerinas, milky white moons. I changed that to prim ballerinas, wild baboons. The milky white moon was going to be the hydrangea, like big and white. And I thought, that's not that interesting. So I had a lot of candidates that I tossed out for more fun flowers. I said ruby red spiders and dusty black bats. And I changed that to skittering spiders, fluttering bat. That's so much more interesting for kids. It's cool to have the ing words. I like using the gerunds. I like the way they're paired together. Instead of saying pineapple lilies, I said pineapple posing. I think it's neat for kids to learn these words, like when you pose, like for a selfie or whatever, you're perfectly poised, just like the pineapple lily is. I do lots of research, so everything that you see in blue is where a scientist, either at the Natural History Museum, the U.S. Botanic Garden, or Longwood Gardens, which, by the way, is an amazing botanic garden in Pennsylvania, have made a change. The bottom one is where my chief pollination expert made changes. And then what I'm really excited about is in the back of the book, I have actual photographs of all of the flowers so you can see what they actually look like. Because I honestly think kids would not totally get, since my books are for very young readers, they might not understand that these flowers are actually real. It was very hard with 17 disparate flowers to figure out how to unite them. So my editor and I decided just to have a list. Common name, scientific name, where it lives, so it's native habitat, and the pollinator. And I explained a little bit about pollination, and I will tell you, to explain that in one paragraph took me about 6 weeks. I then move into my illustration phase once I have the manuscript. So the bottom thing that you see is called a thumbnail dummy, because it's not much bigger than your thumb. Little miniature book, 8 pieces of paper folded in half, and then I make a larger dummy. And I do a storyboard, so I know exactly what's going to go on each page, because you don't just randomly say, oh, I'll put the parrot flower on page 9. I mean, you have to know exactly what's going where. You work that out with the publisher and make sure you're all happy with the format. We actually didn't change anything on my storyboard. This is my studio where I work. I live in Chevy Chase, Maryland, so I'm not too far from here. I love my 2 windows that have natural light, but notice that I have 2 lamps over my desk here, because I sit for like 6 or 8 hours and my eyes get really tired and I have to be able to see very well because my work is very, very detailed. Okay, so this is my process for every single illustration I ever do in my entire life for a book. I look at photographs. Now, I might have seen the ice cream tulip in nature, but I have to be looking closely at what it looks like. I look at my photographic reference. Of course, it does look like an ice cream cone, so I just had to put that in there. And then I begin with, I do pencil sketches. So I don't do any work on the computer. I actually do everything by hand. I do pencil sketches, and then I work in acrylic paint on paper. You mix acrylic paint with water. It dries very quickly. It's very forgiving. You can make mistakes, paint over things. It's great for me. So I did that, and I thought, well, I kind of like that. My style is very flat, as you can see. So then what I do is I take my final illustration, and on the lower right, I've transferred it onto tracing paper, and then I'm going to transfer that onto 2-ply Bristol paper, and I'm going to begin painting. But then I have to mix my paints. So you can see I save my paint in little jars like you see there on the far left, and I label it background picture, the ice cream tulip. Because if I smush my paint or make a mistake, I need the exact same color to paint over it. On the left is what I started painting that drawing and I didn't like it, so I completely redid this illustration. On the right, you can see the drawing for this final picture. I actually have to write down pink, pink, white, white, green, green, whatever it is I'm going to be coloring in. You can see on the left, I've just begun the process of painting. So in a sense, for me, it's like a coloring book. I already have my faint lines, and I'm actually painting in all of those lines. I actually painted the colors on the periphery, the borders that you see there of the ice cream tulip. There's even a thin little line around it that my art director and I picked out. So all those are really incredibly important decisions that you make that bring a book to life. Here's my amazing African daisy. I just absolutely love painting this flower. Looks like it has endings that look like a spoon. When I go to schools, I love to say to kids, what did I change in this picture? Because sometimes it's very minor, but it makes a difference. So if you'll notice from the left, in the second African daisy from the left and the one on the far right, I actually had a couple butterflies inside the flower. And I started painting them, and I realized I thought they were very distracting, and that kids would actually be looking at the butterflies more than they'd be looking at the shape of the flower. So my book is really about shape and color, and that's what I want kids to pay attention to. So I totally eliminated the butterflies. Take a look at how amazing how close this flower on the left, that's the real parrot flower, looks like a parrot. It's just amazing. So on the left was my final drawing, but then at the last minute I thought, it's called cropping, where you crop out, I'll call it the tail for lack of a better description, on the left. And then I thought, why would I crop that? It's so beautiful. I want kids to see the whole flower. So on the right, I decided to paint the whole flower. So now I want to show you, let's see if I can. It's on? Ooh, okay. I just want to explain that when I'm painting, I'm just going to come over here for a second. When I paint, I use imagine that I'm mixing my paints, okay? Like mix, mix, mix. So I'm doing, the background color here is actually a lot of purple. It's not just black, it's purple, blue, black. I mix my color, and I do a background color, and then I use a blow dryer, blow it dry, because I don't want to wait for it to dry. And then I take sort of a middle-sized brush, so it's like a layering process of layers and layers of paint. With my middle-sized brush, I come in and I do the beautiful white head and the belly and all the larger portions that you see here. But for me, where the real beauty is, and the real joy that painting brings to me as an artist, is all of the details. Coming in and doing, this isn't exactly what this looks like if you looked at the photograph. That's how I interpret it. So for all of us, when we're creating, it's how we see the world, right? That's the beauty of it. So I come in and I do these very, very, very thin lines. And a lot of this love comes from my experience as a textile designer, creating designs for women's clothing and really loving very detailed patterns. And nature's full of patterns. So for each painting, it's a layered effect of just many, many layers. And that probably took me about 6 days to do. So it take me a little while. Okay, moving along to show you a couple other examples of how I create my work. There's the monkey orchid on the left. Looks like a monkey, as you can see. So here I got a little bit carried away. I think on the left I have like 13 different monkey orchids. And I really simplified. So what I like to do for young kids is I think about being economical and spare and focusing on exactly what I want them to see. Here we have the Mexican hat on the left. It really does look like a sombrero. So sometimes I do the habitat at the very, very end. So on the left, I did my drawing. Then I changed the position of my little bee pollinators just a little bit. And by the way, every single thing I'm showing you, I have to submit it to scientists to make sure that it's actually correct within my stylization. Because of course, I don't paint absolutely realistically. I have a fanciful nature in what I do, but it still all has to be anatomically correct. So I've had to correct a few things. And then I put in the, I'm begin mixing my paint. What you see on the right is like the most exciting part of being an artist, because that's, for me, the spontaneous part where I'm mixing the colors. And so I try them out on just a sheet of paper next to me to see if I like them, make my changes if I wish, and then continue. And that's the final picture. One of the things I liked about this was the Mexican hat is moving off to the right, sort of diagonally. So notice how the grasses are going in that same direction. I think that helps make a much more effective composition than having them compete going in the other direction. So you're always thinking about ways to make the illustration at least as pleasing to my eye as possible, and to others, hopefully. That's the crazy swaddle baby orchid. It's so amazing looking, very delicate. So when I did my first drawing on the left, it was kind of clumsy, and I kind of drew them rather largely, and they really aren't that large. And then I saw photographs where they're all kind of like lined up, and one is sort of nudging the other, and I thought that was so cute. So you see that on the right-hand image, on the left-hand side, that one's kind of just tipping towards the other one. These little things make a big difference in how a picture is conveyed. Okay, those are my grape hyacinths. So I say to kids, which one are the grapes? I mean, honestly, they get confused. The grapes are on the left, the flowers on the right. I really got carried away with my first picture for this. This would have driven me absolutely crazy if I'd painted that. But I did like this very intense, a zillion of these, grapes. And then I thought, no. I want to make this, again, spare, simple. My audience are young readers who are just learning about the world. Focus on the shapes, not too many, so I just have a couple, as you can see there. Just to show you, that's a photograph on top, and that's my illustration on the bottom. So I really am not exaggerating how amazing these are. Last picture I'll show you, my very loose drawing of the kids on the last page. I made notes to myself. That's my final drawing on the bottom. I begin the painting process. This picture took me a very, very long time, in large part because I had to reference the 7 flowers that are in it. I had to make sure and talk to botanists to make sure they all bloomed at the same time. These are things that a 5-year-old might not ask, but that doesn't matter. I've got to get it right. And I really ended up liking that last picture. I also tried to pick shapes like the one on the far right of the purple allium. Round shapes. Kids are just learning. What does round even mean, right? So that's trying to really cater to my audience. Thank you so much for listening to me today. Oh, I think I have a minute for questions. Do I have a minute for questions? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And now, next please. Oh, I'm going to be signing at 3:15 along with my fellow author here, and it's going to be in tent. I think it's C. Is that correct? Oh, it's right next door. I'll be right next door. Thank you so much. Oh, yes. Politics and Prose sells the books in the tent. You get the book in the tent. You walk over here, and we'll be there at 3:15. Thank you so much for that question. I guess the more books we sell, the better, the more the festival will come back year after year, so that's a good thing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Don't leave. Don't leave. I will chase after you. So my name is Michael Hearst, and I wrote a book called Curious Constructions, and because of that, I am here. And I guess we just need to somehow switch the HDMI on the screen somehow, if there's a official HDMI switcher for the screen. That's fine. It doesn't. The TV, I have no idea who's the tech person for the TV. I'm just going to say this to everybody out there. I'm not here to embarrass anybody, but where's the tech person for the TV? There. Okay. So, I'm actually a musician. Not actually, but I have been playing music, performing, touring, putting out albums, scoring films, a lot of that stuff for the past 15, 20 years. And at some point, I wrote an album called Songs for Unusual Creatures, which were all songs inspired by strange animals. And the album did fairly well, but then a publisher came to me and said, would you want to do a book called Unusual Creatures, just about these animals? And I did, and it was a lot of fun. I wasn't expecting it to do as well as it did, and it ended up doing much better than the book even. So that was the first book I did, and then they asked me about another book, and the follow-up book was called Extraordinary People, which was about 50 of the planet's most fascinating individuals. And then the third book is Curious Constructions, which hopefully we will see footage of in a second. We're wishing the techs well on this. I wonder, let me, hang on. And that's it. Thank you, guys. Good night. Well, I could play some other songs. Well, you guys are panicking more than I am. I'm okay. I'm okay with this. I'm just happy to, be away from home. So yes, this is Curious Constructions. And those are the three books: Unusual Creatures, Extraordinary People. And so the first thing I do is really absurd. It kind of is in line with the recipe project. I thought it'd be fun to write a song that sings every single entry from the book in alphabetical order. It's actually the book trailer. And then just to make things more complicated, I'm going to try to sing it in time with the video showing every page from the book. Wish me well. I will run out of air, and I may fall over. Observatory, Berkeley oil rig, Biosphere 2, Bob Burnquist, Mega Ran Cathedral, termite mounds, Coney Island parachute, jump, desert breath, dire tunnels, Eiffel Tower, El Popo, Mechanico, Finca Bella Vista, Gateway Arch, Great Canyon Skywalk, Grand Central Terminal, the Great Barrier Reef, the Great Pyramids of Khufu, and the Great Wall of China. Those are just the first 17. Cause there's the Harbin Ice and Snow Sculpture, Hudson Ethan Lighthouse, the International Space Station, IKEA Undersea Restaurant, John Termonter, King of Cod, Chevy Domer, Large Hadron Collider, Marsh Air, Breed Houses, Monso Forks, Mill, Lau, Viaduct, Mill, Y, Nautilus House, North Youngest Road, Palm Jumeirah, Paul Bunyan, Petra, and the Rugyong Hunto in North Korea. Sagrada Familia, the 7 churches of Antarctica, Slough, Hawkbook, Social Pool, Stonehenge, Stratosphere, Las Vegas, Svalbard, Global Seed Ball, Taipei 101, Terracotta Warriors, 3 Gorgeous Dam, and the Tower of David, Transcontinental Airway System, and the last entry is Watts Tower. These are constructions that I found curious. I hope you'll take a look. I hope this song didn't bore you. And I hope you'll buy the book. That's the most successful I've done that yet, so thank you for sticking around. All right, so the first thing I have in one of the first entries I want to talk about is Finca Bella Vista. This is a tree fort community in southern Costa Rica. It includes 10 private homes with several cabinas for vacationers. You can actually build your own home down there if you follow the 23 pages of community guidelines. Here's some footage of it. One thing that you cannot find out is where it is located unless you actually book a vacation there, and then they will tell you where it is. But it's kind of cool. Mateo and Erica Hogan, who were Americans, still are Americans, from Colorado, who clearly saw Return of the Jedi and loved the Ewok village on Endor, decided they would build a tree fort community. They, very smart, they actually bought 600 acres of rainforest, so what they're doing is preserving rainforest by doing this. And it's absolutely beautiful. The houses are connected by zip lines and suspension bridges, and there's animals, and I hope one day I can go down there and visit. I had a lot of fun emailing with them. And I'm sorry I'm talking really fast for you doing sign language. You're sign languaging me talking about you right now. How cool is that? All right. Moving forward. This is sort of a scary one. This is the Ryugyong Hotel in North Korea, also known as the Hotel of Doom. Pick a room, any room, they are all available. All 3,000 rooms are vacant. As far as I can tell, this is a building that was constructed for the sole purpose of propaganda. Here's an actual photo of it. In 2008, Esquire magazine named it the worst building in the history of mankind. And it's been in production for 30 years now, since 1987, and it's still not complete. And I know this because just a few years ago, a British journalist who went on a guided tour of North Korea, doing exactly what they wanted him to do, went for a jog one morning and beelined away from his place and went to the Ryugyong Hotel and walked inside. The door was empty, and the whole thing is just, the door is unlocked, the whole thing is just empty. So, pretty amazing and extraordinary and unusual and curious. All right, this is a fun one. This is Chevy Domek. You might have heard me try to pronounce that in the song. Also, that translates to Crooked House, and it's in Sopot, Poland. Here's what it actually looks like. You have not eaten anything strange. That is, in fact, this building. It's a shopping center, but it's also the base of the architect, Sotniski Zaleski, sign that one, lives there. And it's based on drawings by a Dutch illustrator named Per Dahlberg. I have a poem for you. It's in the book. Crooked house, oh crooked house, I hope your walls are thick. For if I stumble while inside, or if I should get sick, I'll lean on them and pretend I'm in a fairy tale. And if I'm in your gift shop, you'll likely make a sale. So this is what the inside looks like. At least one of the rooms. I'm moving quick because I know we don't have that much time. All right. Cathedral termite mounds. I never said constructions had to be made by humans. There are several entries in the book that are made by animals. One of my definitions for constructions is just anything that's intentionally made. And the Macmillan Dictionary, I think, defines it as buildings or other large structures. So these termite mounds, which are on average 13 feet tall, certainly fit into that category. They're found in northern Australia, built by cathedral termites. And there are, on average, about 1 million termites in each one of these. And they live in the lower section, partially subterranean. And it gets really hot in Australia, and especially when you have 1 million termites together living in one structure. So the beauty of this termite mound is that it's porous and hollow, sort of like a tagine pot. The air spirals up, and there's not a hole at the top, but the air can leak out and keep the termites cool. They are made from mud, plant matter, termite saliva, and feces. Ew. And they do come in different colors depending on the color of the soil or their feces. Actual photo. They are real. And I was just interested, here's the airflow of the termite mound on the right, but I was also just curious about how big are these things compared to a termite. And I started researching, and the tallest building on the planet is the Burj Khalifa in Malaysia. And in comparison to a human, that's the size of a hypothetical termite mound to a termite. So they are very large in relationship to termites. I'm sorry, it's in Dubai, not Malaysia, for those of you who are, this is the actual Burj Khalifa. Okay, I used to skate a lot. I have a friend here who used to skate a lot too. I've always loved to try to find a way to include skating things. And Bob Burnquist is a pro skater who has a lot of land in Southern California, and he built what is currently the largest skateboard ramp on the planet using the contour of the hills around where he lives. This ramp is 360 feet long and 75 feet tall, which is basically it's longer than a football field and taller than an 8-story building. It's so tall that even pro skaters like Tony Hawk are somewhat terrified of it. I have some footage though, and this is Bob Burnquist going. This is why I had such a stink bringing my own computer so I could show you footage of skaters on this thing. So they reach speeds of 55 miles an hour, and they go down one side, launch into the air over this massive pit that has a net that I'm sure would do you no good if you fell into it, go down another side, and then launch up into the air. So here's Tony Hawk, actually. That was Bob before. Here's Tony Hawk trying it out for the first time. He says, no thanks. Let me try again. He's not even going off the higher section. This is take 2 with Tony Hawk. No, not again. But now here he is. I think this is fast forward. Let me add, a 540 spin in midair, and he lands it. And now look how insanely fast and how high he gets on this side. So yeah, that's do not try this at home. All right, how about an underwater house? 2 minutes. This is the Ithea Undersea Restaurant in the Maldives, and just get right to the footage of it. The Maldives are unfortunately probably going to be underwater in the next 50, 60 years, so you may as well build a restaurant underwater just to beat it to the punch. And you can go out on this pier and walk down, and I like to think that you can just point out which fish you want to eat for lunch. But it was built in, let's see, it was built in Singapore and transported over on a barge and then loaded with 94 tons of sand to weight it down. Moving quick, not much time. Moai statues, which are on the island of Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island. There's no Easter Bunny, I'm sorry, on Easter Island. That is a name given to it by the Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen, who visited it on Easter Sunday. But these statues are all over the island, and we think they represent worship ancestors. We're not totally sure. But what we do know is that we have recently discovered they actually have bodies if you dig deep into the ground. And I'm just going really fast, sorry. Running out of time. Transcontinental airway system. These were all, before there was navigation, airplanes looked out the window and actually had to look at arrows all over the place to see where they were going. These are all over the country and were used to deliver mail until World War II. And now, last but not least, El Popo Mecanico, which I'm just going to sing to you because it's a song about a fire-breathing octopus that is seen at Burning Man. Okay, I was going really fast, so sorry. Not even doing the right song anymore. El Popo Mecanico, the brainchild of Dwayne Flatmo. It's one of the stars of Burning Man. It's made of lots of junk. It's the definition of steampunk. The crowds gather en masse to see it go. El Popo Mecanico, first conceived in Mexico. Check it out, it puts on quite a fancy, fancy show. It's Dwayne El Popo Mecanico. It's designed designed by Dwayne Flatmo. Sit back and watch the afterglow of El Polpo Mechanico. The glow of El Polpo Mechanico. All right. That's all I've got. Susan. I believe I am signing books. Yes, there are books for sale, and I will be signing at the next door.
We do have plenty of time for questions. So if you have a question for either of our authors, please let us know, and I'll be happy to give you the microphone.
That's so cool. I know. It's there.
Okay.
Hi. I wanted to know, when you do that background color and it's that dark black and purple,
Yes.
how do you know what your sketch is? Because
Oh.
you paint over the sketch, right?
Right. So what I did was I had my so I have my tracing paper. I put it on top of a piece of white paper. But when I trace over it, it has faint lines. So actually, I put the black. I kind of went around the white, for example, so that I knew not to paint there. But sometimes I do just a whole background color of blue and paint over it. It just depends. With the white, I knew that would be really tricky. So that had to be pristine white.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much for coming along.